Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fireside chat today. If you haven't already, feel free to come on camera since this is a collaborative conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Give everybody a minute to get in. Hey, Jim. All right. Hey, Richard. Hi, Michael. Hey, Janelle. All right, so let's get started. Welcome to today. We're going to be talking about client collaboration today and how we're going to simplify that. And we're really excited to have Holly and Rebecca joining us for the fireside chat. We're going to dig into how can we optimize our client communications, especially now, because we're going into our busy season, we need to really focus on how we're collaborating with clients to make it a great experience for them while keeping it super efficient for our team and for ourselves. So really excited to have Holly Thomas and Rebecca Kittle and Vishnavi from FreshBooks with us today. Holly and Rebecca, would you just take a minute to introduce yourselves to our community?
Yes, absolutely. It would be my pleasure.
Great.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Holly Thomas, and I'm the director for our accounting channel over at FreshBooks. And I'm really thrilled to be part of the discussion today. I thought I'd just tell you a little bit of a story around how my journey ended up to where I was. So really, my journey in the accounting and small business world has been a deeply personal one for me, shaped really by my experiences when I was growing up. My mum was a small business owner, and like so many others, she poured her heart and soul into running her business. And I remember seeing her at the kitchen table at many nights doing the books after a long day of work, which ultimately made the impact of her not being able to spend time with me and my two brothers, with her juggling so much. So watching her growing up as a child, I couldn't help but think, surely there's a better way of doing things for small business owners. And that idea really stayed with me and eventually led me into a company where I first started at zero and now FreshBooks. And so I really want to help partners and small businesses such as yourself really empower the small businesses of the world to take back more time by leveraging technology. And so that passion has really fueled my career, helping accounting professionals as well as small businesses work smarter, not harder, so you can truly focus on what matters most. So I'm very excited about today's conversation to share some insights and experiences about how we can continue to help evolve and change this industry for the better. So thanks for having me, and I will kick it over to Rebecca.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Rebecca Kittle. I own a company called Ledger Sense. I work with FreshBooks in the capacity of part of their accounting partner advisory committee. I guess suppose just a wee bit of background why I am in the space I'm in. I worked in corporate America, doing audits, real estate. We're talking IFRS, stat, GAAP, all the fun technical CPA terms. But after I sufficiently burned myself out, as many others can relate to, I ended up in the world of just small business and quickly fell into what bookkeeping is for small businesses at the time was really poor. They would just, box of receipts situation, or they never knew what their accountant was doing. They didn't know what the reports meant. And so there was just this like misnomer, this black hole of like, what does this actually mean? And I found myself falling in love with really explaining like what a financial statement is, what it means, and more importantly, what is the story that it's telling about your business? Because as a business owner, we might think one thing is happening, but then when we actually put the numbers to it, sometimes we get this insight of, I had no idea that this is what's actually happening. And so that is how I landed here and why I love working with FreshBooks.
I love that, Rebecca. You're in a room with all like-minded professionals. So everyone here on this call has that same passion. I would very strongly suspect. So certainly myself and included in that as a practitioner for 30 years. I love working with clients. And again, like you said, financial literacy for a lot of them isn't their strong suit, which is why they reach out to us. And so helping them to see those little blind spots that they're not aware of is just so fulfilling and important. So I want to dive right into our conversation on client collaboration. And I want to start first talking about, we're in the thick of it, right? Mm-hmm. So we're anybody that does 1099s and W-2s, you're super in the thick of it. For those of you that are tying out the year end, you're also in the thick of it. And so we all know as practitioners that this time of year, if our clients aren't great at collaborating with us, that's a real problem that can actually set the tone and set us back for the entire busy season if we don't have those, optimized. So how does effective collaboration, we'll start with that question first, reduce friction in our financial workflows? How can that solve those problems of the bottlenecks? And I'll kick it over. We'll kick it over to Rebecca first and then Holly. Does that work? Okay.
Sure. Yeah, so there's the obvious benefit of it's going to set the expectation. So just as a baseline example of if they choose not to give you access, read-only access to the bank, you can set that expectation of like, listen, I'm not going to be able to tie anything out until you actually send me your bank statements. But the less tangible side effects of what true effective collaborative communication brings to the table for me is just empowering them to go and sometimes get that information that they need, or helping them feel empowered to tell me what they know I'm going to need to know. So it's sort of like pulling back the curtains a little bit of, oh, you're right, she has no idea what this Amazon charge is. Why don't I just go ahead and either tell her, or I upload the receipt, or depending on how your firm might handle some of these pre-accounting tasks, they might actually be going in and categorizing them for you, and sort of starting the communication there. And then the second one is trust. Our industry, there are lots of reasons maybe to have a lack of trust, but really starting the communication and letting them know that we really care, and that I'm not an expert at what they do, right? You can't be. I mean, some of my clients, I'm like, I have no idea what you do, but I love supporting them and I love learning about their business. But I need them to trust me that I'm showing up as like your accountant, and I'm dedicated. I'm here. We're going to get this right. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and just to add on to some of the things that Rebecca said there, the word that really stood out to me was expectations. I think in order to have that effective collaboration, you really need to align on expectations between the accountant and bookkeeper, as well as the small business right from the start. I think if you can streamline the communication, you can reduce some of that back and forth, and it's never going to be perfect, but it's about a starting point. And then when everyone has access to the same real-time data and understands their roles within the workflow, it's really going to help eliminate those bottlenecks and prevent some miscommunication, which is ultimately going to lead to faster decision making, which is going to be beneficial for the business, and then smoother workflows, which is going to be beneficial for the trusted advisor.
I love that, Holly. One of the things that we did in my firm back before I sold my firm and came to Woodard was when we took on a new client and they were working with, and we were the bookkeeping firm or the CAS firm, right? And they were working with a tax accountant or CPA. We always included them in the conversation, right? So when we onboarded the client, we expected that person to be on the call. But at the very minimum, we sent them a letter saying, hey, we're taking over the bookkeeping or whatever for a mutual client, and here's how we work, right? And we always copied the client on that, right? So that, because there has been times, I don't know if anybody, I'm going to see people probably nodding their head maybe, where, I've been ghosted, right, by other members of the client's accounting team, which is not great client collaboration, because you get stuck there. And then I don't know if it's ever happened to you guys where you're like, okay, well, I haven't heard anything, I'm going to handle it this way. And then you do the work to handle it the way that you think they're going to want it. Then they get back to you and say, no, I want you to do it another way, and you have to redo it. So that's something, but pulling the client into those communications, I think, is really important, because the client is seeing that you're at least reaching out and that you've communicated to the other accounting partner for that client. So I love that. What are other ways that accountants can set expectations with clients? And I'm going to throw in there, because I love that you did that, there are other accounting team members. What are some other ways that they could do that?
I'm happy to kick us off on this one. So I think, a key thing to avoiding some of those barriers at the beginning, which we've already mentioned, is setting really clear guidelines from the outset, such as outlining communication protocols, defining response times. I work with hundreds of partners where they say, a small business has called me at 2 a.m. A small business is WhatsApping me at 7 a.m. in the morning. So you really need to outline, and some are happy for them to do that as well, but some are not. They want to set their hours for their business and their priorities as well. So aligning on communication protocols, defining those response times, and agreeing on technologies and tools that they're going to use to streamline that communication. If the client loves to email, but the accounting partner prefers for them to upload files, they really need to align on those. So having a documented onboarding process that explains roles, responsibility, timelines is really going to help establish that trust and clarity from the beginning. As I said, it's never going to be perfect, but it's definitely going to be an evolving process, and you need to start somewhere.
I love that. Rebecca, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that really hits the nail on the head. Every firm is going to be a little bit different. Some people might need a certain type of communication. I actually got a Facebook Messenger message yesterday, and I was like, oh, nope, I just realized this is a hard line for me. This isn't going to work. So yes, absolutely. Establishing that communication expectations upfront. Personally, I actually go ahead and do that in my proposal upfront of, this is my response time. Here's the communication method we're going to do. And then I even break it down into, and I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more nitty gritty here of like what pre-accounting tasks you have asked me to do and which ones you're going to do and what I expect you to tell me when you're done. And it just makes it so much easier.
It really does. As far as deadlines, how do you do that in that engagement letter or the proposal? Do you do that? How do you set the expectations for deadlines?
Yeah, to me, that's like, I plan out everything. I've got to know when it is you need something from me. So if somebody needs it by the 7th business day because of their like investments or partners or whatever, I've got to know that, because then that means we're backing up a couple of days if you're sending me bank statements or things of that nature. So yes, I am definitely specifying if it's 15th business day, 21st, if we're doing a quarterly review, even like how often we're going to have meetings. And I'll even go so detailed as to specify, like, I am keeping track of your 1099. So this time of year when I'm panicking and I don't remember if you're doing it or if I'm doing it, I can just go right back to it. And then that clears everything up.
Fantastic. I love that. Does any of the members of our fireside chat, our audience, have anything to share on, have you found a way that's worked really well, communicating to your clients and their accounting partners, how you're working and how are you getting that information over to them? Anyone? No? All right. Oh, Michael. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for jumping in. I was going to call on somebody, but you just saved me from that.
Okay, good. I just switched over to Financial Sense. And so that's how I'm communicating with them, especially on sensitive information. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact, I like it better than Lisio due to the fact that they don't have to have a login. It's a magic link to get in. So it saves them time and frustration. That was the biggest frustration with Lisio, was I had one client that just, the MFA with that was just too hard for her. And I don't know why for sure, but anyway.
Yeah, that That multi-factor authentication can really do a number on some of our clients for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
practice management software is fantastic for that, especially if you can set up automated reminders and things. So I love that. Thank you.
Me, it's
Hi, Julie.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, from Keeper for the client communication and for them to upload sensitive documents. And I love that Keeper does do auto reminders every Monday morning, if there are things they haven't answered, which is great.
Fantastic. Yeah, auto reminders are a huge time saver too. They really can change the game in your firm, because we've got a lot of things to juggle. So having that be done automatically for us, as long as our clients are looking at them, is great. So, Rebecca, can you share some examples of how maybe an experience in your firm, how collaboration has led to a better outcome of information flow? Do you have any, or Holly, either one of you, if you guys have an example?
Rebecca, do you want to start and then I can follow?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's a pretty obvious, I would say, like low-hanging fruit on this one. But I do like a quarterly meeting with most of my clients. There's usually not enough change month to month for us to sit down once a month, but really like getting accurate information so that when I sit down and I tell you like, hey, listen, this ratio is increasing. This wasn't what we were expecting, like what's going on. I can answer preemptively some of those questions for myself, and I'm actually bringing more information to the table. The point of those meetings for myself is that's really where I'm taking that advisory role. I'm not just your bookkeeper and accountant, but I'm trying to show up as like your fractional CFO. I'm showing up as your true team member. And so, having some information, some insight into your business on the numbers, like that's really where I think most of my clients are actually getting the value out of not only the reports, because for a lot of people, they've shared over and over. It's just a bunch of numbers on a screen, just a bunch of numbers on a report. But tell me the actual, like, what does it mean? The so what of it. So that's to me the best outcome out of my entire job is not only when they're feeling empowered, but also like when it makes sense and then they can do something with it.
I love that, Rebecca. And one of the things that you just said is when they start asking questions, right? You know that you're really starting to get through when because I've had meetings with clients, and I think all of you have, where you talk to the client and they just sit there and they do this. And then at the end, do you have any questions? Nope. But it's when they actually start asking the questions in that meeting is where you realize, okay, they get it. They're part of this process now. They're actually taking ownership of their business, which is incredible. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. I'll just double down on some of the outcomes that Rebecca mentioned as well. I think if the accounting professional and the small business are leveraging a platform like FreshBooks, you've got access to that real-time data you can work on simultaneously. So you're reducing delays, which is ultimately going to enable faster decision making, more informed decision making. It's going to help simplify the tax prep, which is never easy. By sharing digital files with integrated systems, you're going to try and eliminate some of that last minute scramble and some of those errors. And lastly is faster problem solving. So if you're working collaboratively, which is going to help you enable to resolve some of those issues quickly, and then you're going to be saving time, hopefully improving accuracy over the long term. And so I think that's like some of the outcomes as well. And I think it was Michael that mentioned financial sense. We're actually exploring some conversations with them about what a potential partnership could look like. So we're going to be integrating with them, like in terms of like co-marketing efforts, not fully integrating. And so, Michael, I'd love to get your email afterwards and just have a listen or a bit of a download of what your experience is so far, because it sounds like a real positive one.
Fantastic. Love that. I'm going to take this opportunity to launch our first poll. So this poll is, what is the most significant challenge that you face when collaborating with clients? Is it miscommunication or unclear expectations, inefficient workflows or manual processes, difficulty in adopting or integrating new technologies, or maintaining strong long-term client relationships? And I'll just leave that up for a minute. Yeah. I want to say, I think during, the life of my firms, I think I went through all of these. like at one point, and then you just kind of
Absolutely.
tackle one and then move on to tackling the next one. But they're all definitely challenges for sure.
I'm
And
curious as a follow-up to this one, because it's like the inefficient workflows or the manual processes. I'm curious to understand, is that on the firm side or the client side? So like, is that the firm internally, the way the operations with the staff is happening, or is that the process squeeze with the clients that is slowing them down?
ooh, it's a great question.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
do
going
you
to
know-
end the poll real quick and share out.
Pop in the chat. I would absolutely love to hear. Is it the internal operations, or is it the collaborating with the staff at the clients?
And, that is the biggest, that was 50% of people said that was the most significant challenge, is the workflow. So for sure. And I'm not surprised at the last one either, the 3%, which is maintaining strong long-term client relationships, because that's kind of what we do, right? We're in the service of providing peace of mind, and you kind of have to have a pretty strong relationship to deliver on that. So anybody have an answer to Holly's question about, like, do you think that's a client thing, or do you think that's an internal firm thing, or is it a combination of both? Yeah, Jim's saying both. So some internal, some, yeah, for sure. I think what I find, Holly, or at least what I found, was it's when the clients don't follow the process, where they, just like Rebecca said with the Facebook Messenger, right? When they're not following, when they step outside of the process, they may know it, but it's inconvenient to them. And so I think that what happens is that falls back on us to make it as convenient as possible, right?
Absolutely. I had said earlier, I think it kind of relates here too, about bank statements. For me, this is one of my main pain points, and it just drives me kind of crazy because a lot of banks now will offer that read-only access. So, I can't see anything that would make them feel, depends on the bank, feel like I have too much information. But having to sit down and ask somebody and email them on that first or second business day, like, hey, reminder, can you send the bank statement? It's like, I need this, first of all. And second of all, some of them I've been working for years. We do have that level of trust, but they just don't. They can't because their bank doesn't, or they just don't remember it. So absolutely one of those points of frustration where I have my own reminder to remind them. And it's like, if there was just a perfect world.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. It's funny. Jim said, sometimes I can't get clients to stop texting, but then sometimes we allow it, or even text the client when they don't answer other ways. And I totally, understand that, Jim, when I was doing tax returns, and it's like, I could just finish this tax return if I had the answer to this one question, and I'm just going to text them. But then you're setting the precedent, right?
Yeah.
So for sure.
If you set those expectations and those boundaries, you've got to stick to them, because as soon as you start to
give me this instructions.
Oh, sorry. There we go.
As soon as you start to be flexible, that becomes the norm, right? So it's like, as tough as it is, you've got to stick to those boundaries and expectations.
Absolutely. It's very difficult to walk that back once that's been broken, for sure. So I want to dig into the nuts and bolts of different areas of the practice, and the communication, challenges that we have in these different areas. So I'm going to talk primarily to you, Rebecca, at this point. But when we're talking about pre-accounting, and I know that's kind of pre-accounting, at least to me, is a new term in the last, I haven't heard it that way. Maybe like the last 6 months or so. But I'm hearing a lot now. People are using that pre-accounting term a lot now. So what are the key elements of pre-accounting, and why are they essential to this collaboration?
Yeah, so I think of pre-accounting as like your basic bookkeeping. So I hope it's not just me, but I would say within our industry, accounting and bookkeeping are often lumped together. And truly, there is a big difference between the two, especially depending on the size of your client and what kind of regulations they might be part of. So pre-accounting, and FreshBooks has this really great suggestion of a collaborative model. And in this model, they have like a really beautiful wheel. So I'll just tell you what a couple of those pre-accounting tasks might look like. So you have estimates and proposals. You might have projects. If you're a business owner, doing the time tracking and payroll. We have invoicing and payments, and then we have like expenses and bills. And then again, like I acknowledge that not every firm functions the same way. So for me, my clients, a couple of them, they actually ask me to do the invoicing for them. Now, to be clear, we have a very smooth process at this point. I'm not going to do it otherwise. But I'll do the invoicing for them, while others, it's like, hey, listen, this is you, because there's just too much. You need to be doing it yourself. And empowering them to do that. And then likewise, when it comes to expenses. So that's what we mean when we're talking about pre-accounting, is really like that bookkeeping, and maybe some of that like finance-based business operations items.
So as far as, I just want to ask a clarifying question to the pre-accounting. So if we're talking about pre-accounting, it's the stuff that basically the transactional recording, right? That leads us to the generation of a financial statement. Does that sound accurate? Or financial report?
Close.
And advisory.
I would say those are definitely the pre-accounting, but don't lump in there things like reconciling the bank or journal entries or reporting. At least in the model that I personally operate in, and then the general suggestion from FreshBooks is those are really more of like the accountant world items.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I see a nod yes from Holly, so I'm assuming I must be right on task there.
Nice.
You're absolutely spot on. And we've got this pre-accounting and this post-accounting and it's what we've put a wrapper around and called collaborative accounting. FreshBooks didn't come up with this. Firms have been operating this way for quite some time. We've just put a wrapper around it and provided a bit of a model that if you want to work collaborative with your clients, these are some of the tasks that your client will do. And these are the tasks that you will take on as the accounting professional. But as Rebecca said, this model is not rigid. This is not one way of doing things. It really comes down to how you want to collaborate. Rebecca's clients want her to do the invoices, and that's totally fine. But you might want to put the onus on the small business. So it is, even though we've got a framework, that framework can be adjusted depending on the practice outcomes as well as the small business outcomes.
Gotcha. Awesome. So what are some of the common challenges in the pre-accounting? So when you're doing the pre-accounting, what are some of the challenges that you see? And then how can those be mitigated? How can you make it easier for you and easier for the client? Because I really do think, one of the big reasons that we have collaboration issues with our clients is because it's complicated and they just, it's hard for them to actually give us what we need.
Exactly. And that is, so first, let me say that the thing that I love about FreshBooks is that it's really intuitive for business owners. So I actually have a client who once called FreshBooks accounting software for those who are scared of accounting software. And she's right, because it's very approachable. It's not, it still follows accounting, right? So we're still using accounting terms. We've got the accounting language in there, but when it's opened up, it's clean and they very clearly know where they need to go. So the challenges of it's almost like our clients are like these little treasure boxes and we just need to like unlock the information, you know what I mean? And if we can just make it easier for them to go into the software and put in there what is going on in the business or what's in their minds, and we can sort of start to build the picture of what the accounting report actually needs to be. So honestly, I would say that the hardest thing, like you said, it just keeps going back to communication. And the thing about FreshBooks is that it's just not as hard for our business owners to go in, know where they need to go, do what they need to do, and get us the information that we need to get them to the next point. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then which of the pre-accounting tasks do you think are most ripe for automation? And how would that affect the collaboration between, the accounting pro and their clients?
Yeah. So I can't say enough good things about the time tracking. It is one of my favorite parts, and not every firm needs it, absolutely. But if your time needs to be tracked and you're perhaps billing it to your customer, or really you just need to track your time. It is very seamless within FreshBooks of how you can set up your projects, how you can see where you're spending your time. Billing it to a customer is literally a click of a button. And that is one of my favorite features. But for those who don't use time tracking, we also have like estimates and proposals. And I really love that it's all in one spot, right? So we can give you a general estimate and they can send it to their customers. And then when they're ready, they're not bogging up their invoices or with all of these potentials, right? That is something I'm sure many of us have experienced where it's like, is this a real invoice or did you just send it to like show them what it could look like? So that's another feature about FreshBooks that I really love. And what they're actually very well known for is their invoicing.
Right. I had a client years ago that used FreshBooks for the invoicing and the time tracking, and they loved it. And, this was before FreshBooks had a general ledger.
Yeah.
And so we were using QuickBooks, and I remember they did not want to leave FreshBooks as far as the time tracking. Like, well, QuickBooks has time tracking. Like, nope, don't want to go. So we had to come up with an automation between the two. So I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
So some of the other, you talked a little bit, well, earlier in our conversation, you talked about receipts. You talked about, getting receipts and more information about transactions that you might be categorizing within FreshBooks. What does the communication look like with that? So for those that have not yet used FreshBooks, what does that look like? What does that process how does that work within FreshBooks?
Yeah. I saw you come off mute, Holly. Did you want to?
I was going to answer the previous one.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sure. Of course. Sorry.
Follow up because you were mentioning there around like the small business just absolutely loving FreshBooks. And what's unique about FreshBooks in comparison to other competitors out there is this platform is built with owners in mind, because with the whole model of collaborative accounting where, the QuickBooks and the Xeros of the world have been built with accounting professionals in mind. And neither is right or wrong. I think it's just, a complement to how do we put the data and make financials less complex for small business owners as well. But that's the unique thing about FreshBooks. It's really built with that's owners in mind, but an accounting professional can also use it.
Yeah, so you, with that sort of in mind, you were asking about what is most easily automated. Did I get your question right? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a specific example on this one. So expenses, so receipts. I do love their app, but I'll speak to just the web browser version first. Really, it's just really simple. You just attach a copy of the receipt. You can assign it to a project, or you can assign it to their customer, whoever it is. You can go ahead and build in some automatic like markups in there and whatnot. But there's like a button, and it tells you that it's been unbilled. And again, I'm sure so many of us have gone through this where I'll look at their expenses and they'll say, oh, I billed that back to my customer. But did you? Because we're leaving money on the table when we don't. And so it's really easy to just throw that sucker on an invoice. And then with the payment set up the way that the invoices are done, they're getting paid so much faster. So automating the whole process of, hey, I bought this thing, I need to bill it back to my client. They can attach their receipt. They can sort of set it up the way it needs to be. We can visually see when they're not billing it to their client. And then remind, or if you need to remind them, hey, this needs to be on an invoice. It easily pulls right over, and then they're getting paid. And then it's done. That's one of the many automation options. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to take this opportunity to launch our next poll. And this poll is a very important poll because FreshBooks has put together a free resource for everybody that's attending this fireside chat today. And it's a 27-page ebook on collaborative accounting. And so, Holly, I'm going to hand this over to you. I'm going to launch the poll, but if you would like a copy of this resource, and Holly's going to tell you more about it, please indicate that. And if you like that and a demo of FreshBooks to kind of get your feet wet on what does this look like and is it right for my firm and clients, so you can do that. So go ahead and answer that. And Holly, please tell us about all of the goodness that's in this resource.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. So the collaborative accounting tool, and it's kind of a two-prong approach as well. So if you're an accounting professional and you want to move towards this a collaborative accounting framework, there's pretty much a guide in there of how you would go about setting this up. What are the questions? What are the expectations? What are the templates that you need in order to work towards moving to this way within your practice? Now, the guide is a great starting point. We do also have the collaborative accounting certification with FreshBooks, which is a deeper dive version of everything that the model can demonstrate, but then how that practically you can leverage those moments within the FreshBooks platform to collaborate with your client as well. We additionally have a guide for a small business owner as well on how they could collaborate and communicate back to the accounting professionals. We want to educate the accounting professionals, but we also need to educate the small business as well. So we want to be able to help you do that without you creating all the guides and the templates. So know there's an abundance of resources available. And I think, Vaish, you might see in the chat there, but she said, if you're not already a FreshBooks accounting partner, you can sign up. But if you don't want any of that commitment, just know that you can have a free consultation with one of our partner consultants. And what we do at FreshBooks is we discuss, like, what do you want to achieve? How do you operate with your clients? And then determine, one, if you're the right fit. Because if it's not, and it's really not going to work, we're not going to recommend you move forward. Essentially, the success of your practice is the success of us. So if that's somewhere else, that's where we're going to guide you to. But if you did want to have a conversation with our partner consultants, you can do that. And I think, Vaish, if you can pop the email in, yes, absolutely. You can book directly with our team there. We're happy to answer any questions. And the great thing is we do have a Fresh Pack Advisory Council, one of which Rebecca is a member of, but we have over 15. So we're happy to get those professionals to talk to you through that process as well. So you have hands-on experience of what their life is really like versus me and my team telling you all the good things.
I love that. So I'm just going to leave this up for another 5 seconds. If you didn't get a chance to vote in the poll, please do that. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So I'm going to go ahead and end that. And thank you for everyone who answered that poll. So let's continue our conversation. What are some of the practical steps that accountants can take to help their clients? You talked about, I love the fact that you just said that you guys have resources that are basically client facing or business facing, but what are some of the things that we can do to help our clients adopt new tools and our processes, our frameworks, right? In these workflows?
I think as a...
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Nope, please do.
So as a bit of a start in, I think that to start off with, a phased approach is always best. And I think that's, you're not going to be starting with everything at once, because then you're really setting yourself up for failure, right? So you really need to determine, how tech forward your client may be. The same approach won't suit everyone. So you really need to meet them where they are by aligning on expectations to really leverage the collaborative accounting framework successfully. I think Kate was on the call and she had to drop off. I absolutely adore what Kate does, but she offers training sessions. She provides video guides to help clients understand the tools. The great thing that Kate does is she invites, tens, hundreds, however many join her webinars, but she's coaching and training them all at once. So she's effectively scaling her services and her knowledge, but without having to meet with all these one-on-one businesses, because that would be far more time consuming. So you can get really creative in how you can go about educating your small business clients. You can set small, achievable goals, such as automating one specific task. As Rebecca was saying, you could start with receipt uploads. People love capturing a photo on their phone. That's a really good introductory into before you get to more complex workflows of like how to code a transaction and not to general expenses. And then additionally, what you can do is share success stories and case studies of how other clients have benefited from collaborating effectively with their trusted advisor. So hopefully they want to be part of that. They want to gain those outcomes by collaborating with you on a deeper level. Over to you, Rebecca.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad that you got to go first because now I can add my thoughts as a business owner. So I actually offer training also. Kate likes to do it in a larger webinar. She does it in a variety of ways, but I personally like to do it in a one-on-one for two reasons. Number one, I do charge, as we all have our rates, right? I do charge a little bit more for training because I'm actually not only going to do the work, I'm showing you how I literally will do the work. But then I'm also offering that as like a free resource after the fact and really trying to empower them. And then I'll, as it makes sense, I'll stay on as sort of like their advisor through the process. So it does make sense sometimes in your firm to, hey, I'm going to sit down. I have about an hour's worth of work to do in the business. And then I might be like, hey, this is where I need you to go to do the receipt. And here's how it impacts what I'm doing. And so that works pretty well for me and my firm. And I just wanted to throw something out there, if that's okay, Heather. I don't know if we're going to get into this sort of a question, but I do realize the FreshBooks team is here, but I'll just pretend they're not for just a second. So as a firm owner, one of the things that I love about FreshBooks is actually the support that you get as an accountant. So, they're offering a demo and they're offering these free resources, but like that doesn't end just when you're in the system and you're using the platform. They are actually listening and they're taking that feedback. And so a lot of the new features that have come out in the software are because of these conversations that we're having. So there's this eternal feedback loop. If they help me service my clients better, I can give them the feedback to say, hey, these are the issues and challenges I'm seeing. And then they'll say, oh, okay, well, you know what? Then perhaps this is the feature that we want to spend our time on. They really have the best customer service. So in addition to that, when you run into a bump in the road or you have a problem, my client has access, of course, to their support channel, but I also have a dedicated support channel too, where I can reach out and I can ask those really nitty gritty detailed questions. I'm not just like maybe getting a phone call back or getting answers from somebody that, it's an actual, somebody's really there. And it cuts down on so much time. Like Jim said, like my time, you only have so much as a firm owner. So I need to make the most of it as I possibly can. And having that dedicated resource for all of my little questions or my big questions, it saves me a lot of time.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. So I want to pivot our conversation to the relationship aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So how does collaboration with our clients strengthen those client relationships, right? And let's go back to, we started the conversation talking about, real-time data. We talked about getting the information that we need when we need it, right? Mm-hmm. And being responsive and making sure that it's a good experience for the client. So, Rebecca, mm-hmm. how does that real-time data sharing enhance the accounting process for you and for your clients?
It gives us a level playing field to communicate on. They can ask me whatever question whatever issue it is that they're going in right now. And I can, like we keep saying, like real time, I can get in the books and I'm like, oh, it's because you're clicking here. Or, hey, when you're using this report, perhaps like this is more the view that you need to be using. So I'm just able to see it from their perspective a little bit easier, right? Because it is that software that's made for business owners. So I can see what they're seeing without having like this other view perspective or anything. It's all the same. I may not have answered your question fully. So if I didn't, go ahead and have a follow-up question.
No.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I do have a clarifying question though.
Okay,
You're talking about in real time. So are you in continuous communication with your clients throughout, or do you know, because I know some of our practitioners, they have meetings that are set. So they maybe might not be in communication with them, every day, right?
Yeah, you're right. And again, every firm is different. So I choose, I in my contract, right? Because that communication up front is really important to me. I'm going to tell them a minimum once a week, I'm going to be in your books. I'm not going to say every Monday or every Tuesday. It might be a Monday and then a Wednesday, but at least once a week I'm getting in your books and I'm looking. And that is twofold, right? One, it helps me streamline my time. So I have a general idea of where I'm putting my time pretty consistently. But also for my clients, it gives them that extra, they feel more supported because if I have a question, I can ask them that question, whether we're using a tracker or if you're using Financial Sense or email or heaven forbid, Facebook Messenger, or, you know, it gives them an idea that like I'm watching and I'm there. But I do have like an open communication line with them. So there are some that have asked to be on Slack and there are some who ask for email, but I still have to have some structure around that. So I'm like, hey, I need 48 business hours. And if your question is bigger than what I can answer in 48 business hours, I might just have to respond with, hey, I saw your question. Give me until such and such date, and I'll actually be able to answer it for you. Yeah, but no, it's not every day. I'm certainly not talking to everybody every day. I don't know if anybody could quite do that one, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's interesting because in the last firm that I owned, my team actually, our process was pretty traditional as far as doing the accounting, right? It was, you know, you code the transactions, you do the bank reconciliation, you do your journal entries, you do, you know, the pre-accounting and the accounting kind of at the same time, then reach out to the client with questions. And I remember this was years and years ago, but my team actually came to us during one of our meetings and said, I don't want to do this monthly anymore. I don't want to do it monthly anymore. They said it's too much time has gone by. You know, if I'm only talking to them once a month, they forget, like if they have an expenditure, they'll forget what it was for. I want to do it weekly. I want to be able to go in every week, just like you said. And it was actually life-changing for our firm. We just became so much more efficient, even though we went from having our team members in, you know, the client's file for, you know, once a month to once a week. We actually, the time dropped considerably on each engagement and the quality of the data was better. So, yeah. So that collaboration, that continual collaboration, you know, the proof is kind of in the pudding that the more involved you are, the more opportunities you have for, you know, building that trust. And also you have the less of the chance of, you know, somebody forgetting what they did and losing track of things. So.
Yeah, that accountability definitely, it builds trust overall. First of all, it's amazing to hear that the amount of time overall spent did go down. It's good to hear that. I'm happy to hear that maybe the way I'm doing this is more time efficient. But it also, I think, holds them accountable, right? To know, like, I don't mean it in a rude way, but like I'm watching and I am going to take care of these things and I'm going to ask you those questions so that we make sure that we're getting things right. And so they're more likely to be like, hey, here's that, you know, I know you're going to have a question about this. So here it is already. And it's like, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And sometimes they'll overshare, right? They'll send a receipt that was very obvious. But they trust that I'm going to handle it. And it just kind of keeps that top of mind that I am that valuable partner and that resource and that we do want to stay in touch. Helps me build that relationship long term. All of the FreshBooks clients that I started with, I actually still have, and some of them are going on 4 years. So maybe it's a very small sample data, but perhaps that sort of solidifies that long term relationship because I'm there.
I love that, and you know, I think that. And I'm gonna add, this is gonna morph into a question.
Okay.
That, you know, when we're collaborating with our clients continuously, when we have that collaborative relationship with the clients, and I want to know how it does it for you. It does lead to a fact that you know your client a little bit better, right? And so you can start to dig into areas of their business maybe that you wouldn't be able to if you were just doing a once a month touch on that work. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that's made you a better, you know, how it allows you to deliver high value strategic services with your clients through that collaborative approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So anecdotally, or perhaps a story to solidify it, there was one client whose overall business was just like ramping up, you know, and I'm looking at it month over month and you're thinking like, wow, like things are really taking off. And then comes the inevitable question of like, well, how are things going for you and your business? And they just completely and totally unload. If I look at just the numbers, I'm like, wow, you're skyrocketing and things are going so good. But in the conversation and truly like the foundation of this collaborative accounting is I find out they're miserable and they're spending way too much time in the business. Their business has gotten to that point where they're truly scaling. And now we need to have that conversation of like, is it time to start hiring in the business and really starting to build things out a little bit differently? So that's sort of what it's turned into for me is just yeah, just what's really going on in the business here. And, what we think might be a positive trend, like you got to look at it from the scope of that client, perhaps that industry. Yeah. And so that's what collaborative accounting is sort of turned into me, this advisory role, this like supplemental fractional CFO but what is that story for them specifically?
I love that. So we're in the age of technology, right? So an accounting professional, I mean, in this day, I don't believe would be able to deliver their services without the use of really awesome world-class technology. And if they did, I think they would be at a huge competitive disadvantage. So Holly, what should professionals be looking for? What are the important things they need to be looking for in a technology solution that supports easier collaboration with their clients?
Yeah, I have so many thoughts on this, and this has essentially been my entire career is, helping partners, small businesses and other industries implement technology. So I think to start off with, when you're evaluating any technology solution for easier collaboration, the key is to focus on tools that are intuitive, they're integrated, and they're future-proof. So if you have plans to grow, you want the technology to grow with you versus ripping that out and moving to another platform. We know that's not always the easiest thing. Collaboration is only really effective when everyone, whether that's team members, the owners, the clients, any other stakeholders, can use the tool without a significant learning curve. Now, learning a new technology is always going to be tough, but you don't want them to go into a trough of disillusionment and then blame the software versus getting on board with it. So I think that that's really critical, because learning a software later on in life is honestly like learning a new language. And I'm trying to do that now, and it is very hard. So it's crucial you have that support around you. As Rebecca was saying, our support team, and I'm not being biased, is truly incredible. We do wrap you in cotton wool. But a few other critical features is, cloud-based accessibility. I know there's a lot of people that still use desktop. In New Zealand and Australia, cloud adoption is like north of 90%. In North America, I think we're sitting around, between 15 to 20. So there's a fair bit of work to do, is that cloud adoption. I think it's going to help enable real-time collaboration, especially in today's like remote and hybrid environment. Flexibility is going to be really necessary. Seamless integrations, you want to look for technology that works well with tools you're currently using, or map out workflows of how you're going to import, export out of one software into another without creating a whole heap of additional work for you. So you want to reduce the redundancies, not create more. Thirdly, I've already said this was the user-friendly interface. If the technology is really difficult to use, the adoption rates are going to plummet. So it's super important that it's simple. It's helps you with those workflows, especially when you're dealing with clients that might not be so tech savvy. And then lastly, the scalability and support. As your business grows, your clients' needs will grow, the technology should be able to scale with you. And you need to look for a solution that's backed by a company that genuinely has an interest in your firm and in your clients. They're not just there to gain a bit of money, but they are genuinely dedicated to helping you succeed. So I said a lot of things there. So I'm just going to summarize. Cloud-based accessibility, seamless integrations, user-friendly interface, and then scalability and support is absolutely crucial.
And I think one of the most important things I heard you say was the last one, which was is the alignment with your firm's, I guess I want to say core values, and I think that's really your core values. So I think that's really important on how they look at your clients, how you look at your clients, and how you're going to support them. I love that. And I love that you used the word, the trough of disillusionment. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with that term, but I haven't heard it in a long time, because I remember when I did my master's in innovation, they talk about that with the adoption cycle of, and basically summarizing it up, the trough of disillusionment is part of the shiny object syndrome, right? Of, you see something and it can do everything and slice bread. So you adopt it and then you realize that it may slice bread, but the slices are too thick to fit in the toaster. Right. So
don't get distracted by the bells and whistles.
That's right.
Yes, you've really got to make sure that the tool is really fit for purpose. But yeah, that change management curve, that trough of disillusionment,
of course,
get the team on board.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic. We have just a few minutes left, and I do have one more poll to do, but I'd love to open this up for questions and comments from our audience. Jim, you've been sharing some stuff, but does anybody have any questions for Holly or for Rebecca in regards to client collaboration, change management, FreshBooks questions? We'll just open it up to everything. And while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and launch the last poll. Now, you guys had shared previously how they could learn more about your partner program. Maybe you could resurface that for people that maybe have just joined, or so they don't have to scroll up.
Yes,
again.
So there's definitely many ways you can touch base with. Even if you just hop onto our website, you'll have the little bot that will pop up, and you can connect directly with them, and that will land directly over to my team. But I'll just get Vaish to pop in again. There's a website there, so you can sign up. But then Vaish, Michael or Vaish, if you can also pop in the Calendly link, so that will directly book time into our partner consultants calendar, and that way they'll just go through a bit of an assessment with you, just understand your goals, what it is you're trying to achieve, what it is you need help with. I know if we can, we'll go on that journey together, and if we can't, we'll recommend some other solutions that can support you.
Yep. Fantastic. Any other questions or comments?
Open book. Happy to answer whatever questions.
I have a question.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
I'm a little older and I'm used to QuickBooks Online. I don't even do the training on QuickBooks Desktop anymore. Why should I try to learn a new system? I mean, what does your stuff, I know I heard what you said, but why should I go through the ordeal of learning a new system when I have 35 clients on QuickBooks Online?
That's a great question, Richard. And honestly, my first question would be, are you experiencing any pain points? Do you think there's aspects of the platform that are not currently working for you? What does that support look like? Are you spending far too many unbillable hours on the phone to support? Are you happy with your price point? If it's tick, 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 I'm not going to encourage you to change. I'm going to encourage you to stay where you are. If you feel that you're set up for success and your clients are happy and you are happy, then remain doing what you're doing. But if you think there's a better way of doing things and you're willing and want to explore those options, we can definitely have a conversation around that. So if you're happy and your clients are happy, don't fix what's not broken. But if you're willing to explore other options of other ways of doing things, we'd more than happy to help.
I love that answer. Thank you, Holly. All right, we are right at the top of the hour. Rebecca, did you have something to add?
I was considering it. I'll just go ahead and say it. So I have found that my favorite customers are the ones that are drawn to FreshBooks. They are some of the most creative, innovative, to be honest, sometimes off the wall businesses where you're like, I didn't even know that could be a business, but absolutely, I want to figure out, I want to be your accountant partner through this. So for me, it's definitely a completely different creative pool of individuals that I want to reach out to, and I want to explore my practice more into those service-based creative individuals. So that's just another alternative, and it's nice that they can actually get in there and they're doing what they need in the same system, because a lot of people that I've worked with in the past, they'll set up their QuickBooks account, but then they want nothing to do with it and they don't ever go back in there. And that doesn't really work for how I want to communicate and how I really want to be able to help them. So just an alternative mindset.
Well, thank you for that, Rebecca. Well, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Thank you, Holly, Rebecca, and Baish for joining us. And thank you to all of you for coming to our fireside chat. We'll see you next time.